Ever since arriving in Detroit, quarterback Jared Goff has had his fair share of critics. However, in recent times, those critics have started to become quiet and go away. But a former fan favorite and All-Pro Detroit Lion has now opened up a new line of criticism against him. We're going to talk about it in today's episode, folks, so stay tuned.
We used to be a team no one respected. We used to be a team no one feared. That was then. This is now.
First victory of the year on the line. Goff's got it. Back, looks, throws, end zone. Yes! Caught!
You know who we are.
10-5, end zone, touchdown Detroit Lions!
And you know where to find us. We won't be far. We'll be on your front porch waiting for you. We are the New Era Lions. And
we are driven by Detroit.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I am your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving in. But before we dive in, I just want to say to everybody that's returning to my show, thank y'all for coming back, thank y'all for your view, your support, and your patronage. Thank y'all, it absolutely means the world to me, and I'm ever so thankful for all my loyal subscribers. And to those that are tuning into my show for the very first time, I just want to say welcome on in, thank y'all for giving my show a shot, hopefully you enjoy the content, and hopefully I gain your subscription. And with that being said, to everybody, I just want to say God bless. I hope y'all are having a great day. And with that, let's dive into the show. So, here's the thing, folks. Everybody knows that I'm a Jared Goff fan. Everybody knows that I'm a Jared Goff defender. Ever since I started podcasting, whether it was back with DLF or as I've continued now here on MCM, I have defended Jared Goff because, let's be fair and honest here, when Goff first got here, nobody really defended him. Mostly everybody, I have to make sure I clarify that. Mostly everybody wanted him gone. They just saw him as a tag-along. They just saw him as extra weight, whatever term you'd like to use. I'm not going back into all that. But Goff has definitely played to a position where he has silenced most of his critics. He has actually made himself a fan favorite for some people here in Detroit, and he's actually become a player that a lot of fans actually kind of enjoy watching. They actually have a good rapport with him, so to speak, and obviously he's endeared himself to the organization, to his teammates, and everybody else. But today's episode is I don't even know how to put it. It's a rather interesting episode. Like, I find myself in a very peculiar place for today's episode because I'm just going to say this right now. I have no issue with people who offer opinions or critiques, whether it's about the Lions or anything else. Because for me, giving criticism, giving critiques, giving opinions, well, that's just a natural and fair thing for everybody to do. We live in a free country. We have the ability to give our opinions freely, and we should be able to do so. However, I will say this. When it comes to criticism, for me, one of the things that I've always abided by whenever I give criticism is that there has to be some sense to it. There has to be some sort of logic or some sort of reason to it. There has to be some evidence to it. Because to me, people that just like to criticize, those are just Debbie Downers. They're whiners, in my opinion. They're not offering any sort of evidence to back up what they're saying. They're not giving anything more than just their pure opinion. And it's like, listen, if you're going to criticize, you should have something to back up what you're criticizing about. Something that you are saying actually has some tangible evidence. So, what are we talking about for today's episode? Well, here's the thing, folks. Like I said, Jared Goff has had his fair share of critics. I mean, for crying out loud. You take a look at places like 97.1 The Ticket, Woodward Sports, particularly the heavyweights. They have all criticized Jared Goff to virtually almost no end. It's gotten a lot less over the last year and a half, but still. However, though, for me, though, this is a very interesting episode because we're going to be talking about a former fan favorite Detroit Lion who's also a former All-Pro, and that is safety Glover Quinn. Now, why is this a particularly interesting episode for me? Well, the reason why it's a particularly interesting episode for me is that I actually have a history with Glover Quinn. I actually was on a podcast with him probably about a year and a half ago, where I was with some other guys that I've done shows with, and we got him to come on the show. He offered his opinions, and it was a pretty good show. I mean, Glover Quinn's a nice dude. I have nothing against him. He's a great guy. And for me, the reason why this is interesting is because this is somebody that I've actually interacted with. This is somebody that I actually have some, albeit very limited, experience having worked with, actually having somewhat of a conversation with. And for me, talking about this is kind of weird because almost every time I've ever talked about something where I've offered some sort of a retort to whatever someone has said about my Lions or a particular player about the Lions, it's almost being talked about in an abstract sort of sense because I have no interaction with them. But this is different. I've actually had a chance to talk with Glover Quinn. I've actually had a chance to sit on a podcast with him and actually talk with him or hear him speak. So for me, it's a little bit different. But I'm going to talk about it all the same because to me, we have to be fair and honest here. Goff being criticized is not exactly, like I said, something new. I mean, for crying out loud, the Woodward heavyweights, like I said, have criticized him, and they usually criticize him about something almost every other week. I mean, he's also been criticized by other media outlets as well. And I mean, it's not even that he hasn't even been criticized by former players. I mean, for crying out loud, Joik Bell freaking threw a doozy against him back in 2021. And again, that was also on Woodward. Seems to be a pattern there. But again, the point of the matter is that when we talk about Jared Goff and the critics that he's had, usually they always go after the same sort of things. Oh, he's not physically tough. He's not a fit for Detroit. He's just not a good quarterback. These are all the same things we've heard time and time and time again about Jared Goff. And like I said, while that's not necessarily new to hear these critiques about Jared Goff, coming from a player like Glover Quinn, that's a different story. Because again, nothing against Joik Bell, but Joik Bell was just a fan favorite. He wasn't an all-pro. He wasn't necessarily, he didn't really step out too much with his career. And again, the heavyweights are the heavyweights. I've got nothing more to say about them. As far as I'm concerned, they're going to do what they're going to do. But Glover Quinn is different. He's a former all-pro. He's a fan favorite. He's got a lot of standing. Because, hey, when you are an all-pro, you definitely have the ability to say, I played the game and I played it well. So for me, this is definitely something that needs to be taken into consideration. It has to give some weight and have some merit to it. But here's why I have a problem with this critique that Glover Quinn is giving, because it's kind of playing off the same thought process that maybe Goff isn't mentally in the same kind of headspace or not vocally the same kind of place that where the quarterback needs to be for the Lions. Because here's what Glover Quinn said about Jared Goff. I'm actually going to put a screenshot of this up front so that way you guys can see it while I read it. And here's what he said. In a podcast, Quinn was talking about Goff's leadership style. And this is what he said. He said, when things start to slip, I don't know if I see him, and he's referring to Goff, on the sideline galvanizing the guys. It is kind of like, all right, we're just going to go out there and we will put a drive together. You go through those lulls because you're dealing with many other players on the team. Maybe he can help in that regard by being a little more vocal in that situation. Now, I'm going to say this. I have never played professional football. I can't say that. I played in college a little bit. I played high school. That's about the extent of my football. I also played middle school, but most people don't care about middle school. The point of the matter is you don't really start becoming anything about football until you start getting into the high school, college level. And then pro level is where you really make it if you get that far. But here's what I will say. Like I've said, Glover Quinn has experience. He has some definite experience talking about this because, hell, he played in the NFL. He played in the NFL for like 9 years. So he definitely knows what it's like to play in the NFL. And he's definitely played with some really good players. So he absolutely has the ability to talk about this just from that experience perspective. However, we have to keep some things in perspective here when we're talking about this. First and foremost, Glover Quinn has not played professional football since 2018. That was his last year he played was 2018. So 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. We're talking about 5 years that he's been removed from the game at the very least. Now, that's just talking about the current timetable. But then we have to talk about this as well. What is Glover Quinn's critique about? Is it about the actual physical game? Is it actually talking about things like schemes, game plans, X's and O's, understanding coverages, understanding route concepts? No. That's not what Glover Quinn's critique is about. His criticism is actually about something that has more to do with a personal nature, has a little bit more to do with how a player acts on the sidelines. Now, here's the thing, folks. This would be one thing if we were talking about a player having a temper tantrum on the sideline or something like that, because we've seen players do that. But what Quinn is criticizing is that he doesn't think that Jared Goff is being as vocal of a leader on the sideline as he would like him to be, because he thinks that that's not good enough. Now, for me, that again is a problem, because it'd be one thing if Quinn was going to say something about how Jared Goff missed a read, he made a really bad throw, he didn't understand coverage. That would be one thing, because, okay, at that point we have tangible evidence. We have film, we can take a look at what Quinn is seeing, we can take a look at all of those different things, because it's very, very easy to understand, okay, this is what this concept is, this is what this route concept is, this is what the coverage is, blah, 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 blah. We could actually take a look at that, we could break that down. That's very tangible. But it's not tangible to talk about Jared Goff's leadership style. Leadership style is neither a tangible thing that you can measure, and it's not something you can quantify in terms of, oh, do you have a little, do you have a lot? It's a qualitative aspect. It's a qualitative measurement because you either have it or you don't. You're either a leader or you're not. And for me, I just don't understand where this is coming from with Glover Quinn, because I understand part of it is that Glover Quinn played with Matthew Stafford. Anybody who's talked about Matthew Stafford knows Matthew Stafford is a very vocal leader. He is definitely going to get his guys amped up by talking. Now, I'm going to say this right now. There is nothing wrong with that style of leadership. In fact, there are multiple styles of leadership. Leadership has many different roles, has many different aspects in which it can come from. And for me, talking about leadership is kind of a weird thing for Jared Goff, because we have to think about this. Is Jared Goff the most rah-rah kind of guy? No, he's not. We already know that. Jared Goff is not the kind of guy that's going to scream, hoop, and holler, go rah-rah down the sideline. That's just not him. But that doesn't mean Jared Goff doesn't have leadership. In fact, if we just take a look since Jared Goff has been in Detroit, there have been perfect examples of his leadership. Perfect examples that I can think of. I'm actually going to show some clips of this because I saw these clips and I saw them on places that I found for various videos, and you're going to see exactly what I mean. Let's take a look at this one. This goes back to week 17 of last year. Jared Goff, we're playing against the Bears, and this is the game where we just absolutely kill the Bears. Funny enough, we're talking about the Bears, and we're about to play the Bears this week. Anyway, we're playing the Bears. We're winning like 38-10, 41-10, whatever. Jared Goff gets pulled out of the game. They put in Nate Sudfeld. So what happens? Jared Goff is on the sideline. Nate Sudfeld hands the ball off to Jamal Williams, and Jamal Williams goes running down the sideline for damn near 60 yards. But yet, take a look what happens at the end of the play. Most people remember this play right off the bat just because I'm talking about it. Who's cheering Jamal Williams all the way down the damn field to the sideline as soon as he gets tackled? That's Jared Goff. Jared Goff is running stride for stride with Jamal Williams, and then as soon as he gets tackled, he helps him up to his feet, and he's cheering him on. Tell me how that's not being a leader. Tell me how that's not being an enthusiastic leader. You're cheering your guys on. Even though you're not in the game, you're still being a part of the game. Then let's go back to let's go back to almost the beginning of that season that I was just talking about in 2022. Let's go back against the game against the Seattle Seahawks. We actually have Goff being mic'd up in this game. Let's take a look at this. We're at the half point, almost in the game. We're just before the half, the last play before the half. The freaking Lions are at 4th and goal, and they're trying to punch in the ball. We can hear what Jared Goff is saying in the huddle as they go for it on 4th and goal. He is amping the guys up. He's like, listen.
We're going to score. You hear me, Jamal? Yeah. Get in the end zone. Come on. Let's go.
We need to get this score. Jamal, get in the you-know-what end zone. He's hyping up the guys. He's being the leader in the huddle. So there's that example right there. And again, showing the visual evidence. Then, let's think about this. We come out of the halftime break. What happens? Lions get the ball, and very first drive that Lions have the ball, Jared Goff throws a pick. It was a pick six, actually. And what happens? Instead of being down and out and being whining all about it, look what Jared Goff does.
Come on now. Come on now. Let's go, boys. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Keep going. Keep going.
He gets up and he walks down the sideline. He's telling his guys, hey, let's go. Let's keep going. Let's not give up. We got to go back out there. He's keeping the guys in the game. He's being that leader. He's not just sitting on the sideline. He's not just sitting on the bench and just moping and complaining about it. He's making sure, hey, I've got you guys. It's not going to bother me. Let's go out there. Let's go do our jobs. And then there are several times as it gets closer to the end of the game when the Lions are trying to keep pace with the Seahawks. They're going out and they're getting drives. They're scoring points. It's like, hey, let's keep going. Let's keep it up. We got a chance to win this.
Great job. Great job. Great job. Great job. Great fucking job. Great job. Great job. Keep it fucking going.
That's what a leader does. Now, granted, there's a different kind of amplitude you could put to how that leadership style is. Maybe Jared Goff could possibly put a little bit more, fervor or energy in it and start just going yelling and screaming at people. But I'm going to tell you this right now. Some people do not react well to getting screamed at. There's a reason why only a couple of people go into the military, because you're going to get screamed at. You're going to get yelled at. And some people do not react to getting screamed and yelled at very well. So again, understanding your crowd, understanding your audience is very, very important when you're talking about who is on that sideline. And again, those are just examples that I could give as far as visual evidence. Now let's take a look at this just from the aspect of just logic and common sense here. Because let's think about this. Glover Quinn's primary gripe was that Jared Goff is not vocal enough for him, because he thinks that if they get into the playoffs, Jared Goff's going to have to be vocal. Jared Goff is going to have to do something where he gets the guys amped up and he just gives them that like fiery speech or whatever. But here's what I got to say about that. There have been times in the past where quarterbacks were not exactly the most vocal leaders, but yet they still won. And they won in big-time games. Case in point, Eli Manning, Kurt Warner, Joe Montana. None of those guys were ever known as rah-rah kind of guys. None of those guys were known as vocal leaders. But yet, what is something that all three of those guys have? One, they've all been to Super Bowls, and two, they have all won at least one Super Bowl. Joe Montana, been to 4 Super Bowls, won 4 Super Bowls. Eli Manning, been to 2 Super Bowls, won 2 Super Bowls. Kurt Warner, been to 3 Super Bowls, won 1 of them. So again, there's nothing wrong with not necessarily being a vocal rah-rah kind of guy. Being a guy that leads by example or provides that calm demeanor is perfectly acceptable as a leadership style. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, I'm just going to say this. I want to also finally put this out there, because I've talked about visual evidence, audio evidence. I've even talked about logical reasoning evidence. But let's think about this as well. Let's take a consideration of Jared Goff himself. Jared Goff was drafted in 2016. Jared Goff also has been a team captain for a long time, because again, if you've ever taken a look at that captain patch that the freaking players wear, it has 4 stars and then it has a C that's usually over top it. Well, the way that system works is this. Every single star you get is supposed to represent a year that you've been a captain. And it usually represents, the more stars you have is the more years consistently you've been a captain. And usually, once you have gotten those stars, then they give you what is known as a gold symbol, which usually is the gold C and the gold stars. So here's the thing. Jared Goff has been in since 2016, right? Well, here's the other thing I want to point out on top of that. Since 2018, Jared Goff has been voted as a captain, a team leader, all straight through that. So since 2018, he's been voted a captain. Now, wait a minute here. Think about this. Jared Goff has been with 2 organizations now, 2 different teams. So for 3 years with the Rams and then 3 more years with the Lions, he's been voted a team captain. So wait a minute here. He was voted 3 straight years running with the Rams as a captain, and now 3 straight years running with Detroit. Different teams, different organizations, different cities. So with 2 separate teams, for 6 straight years, 3 years apiece, his own teammates voted him as a leader of the team. That's not something that you normally see happen. Because it's like, listen, you're in a new environment, you're going to have new players, you're going to have new people that are going to be looking to you to do stuff, and yet Jared Goff came into Detroit and was right away voted as a captain and has maintained that captain status, maintained that leadership status ever since being here in Detroit. And it's been that way ever since he was named a captain back in 2018. So to me, it's like, wait a minute here. How can you say Jared Goff is not a leader when he's been voted a leader 6 years in a row for 2 separate squads? That just to me makes no sense. So again, what am I trying to drive at here? The point I'm trying to drive at here is this. There is nothing wrong with what Glover Quinn is saying about, hey, you know what? Some guys are more prone to listening to guys that are rah-rah, they're high energy, they're vocal leaders. And there's nothing wrong with that leadership style. But there's also nothing wrong with Jared Goff's leadership style. His leadership style is like, listen, I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to do my job, and if I also feel the need to kind of get amped up, kind of provide the energy, I will, because we've seen Jared Goff do that. But that's not typically his style, and there's nothing wrong with that leadership style. The way I'm going to look at it is this. Again, everybody knows that I graduated as a history major. Well, one of my favorite things to study has been the presidents. One of my favorite quotes by a president was Teddy Roosevelt. And here's the quote: "Speak softly and carry a big stick." That embodies Jared Goff perfectly. Jared Goff does not necessarily talk a whole lot. He doesn't necessarily say a whole lot of volumes as far as getting, like I said, those amped up speeches, the rah-rah kind of energy. But here's what I do know about Jared Goff. When it comes to crunch time, when it comes to playing, he's always there ready to play. That's all that matters. Because again, I guarantee you this, all the players are going to care about is, hey, does the guy show up? Does he do his job? Does he make plays? Does he help us win? That's all they're going to care about. They're not going to care about if the guy gives flowery speeches or not. They're not going to care about if he goes into a locker room and pretty much lights him up like a freaking fire and brimstone Sunday school teacher. What they're going to care about is, can the guy actually help us win football games? That's what Jared Goff does, and there's nothing wrong with that. So that's why I'm talking about this, because I think while Glover Quinn definitely has a point as far as, okay, Jared Goff is not necessarily that fiery kind of leader, there's nothing wrong with Jared Goff's leadership style. It works here in Detroit. Dan Campbell has said multiple times that Jared Goff is a quarterback that fits exactly what they need, exactly what they want. So if Dan Campbell approves, the team approves, what the hell are you complaining about? We're 9-3. Jared Goff has played great football the last 2 years. I don't see any reason to complain about his leadership style when it's clearly working. That's just me personally. But anyway, I figured I'd make this because I knew it was going to be something that somebody was going to want to talk about because, again, Glover Quinn being a fan favorite, somebody's going to talk about it. But having said that, I'm now going to say thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode I got coming at the end of this one. I also encourage y'all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and now you had a chance to do so, I just want to say again, I highly encourage y'all to subscribe to the channel. But also, after you subscribe to the channel, please make sure you also hit that bell notification icon as well, so that way you never miss any more content that I'm pushing out. Again, subscription numbers are always going up, but we want to make sure that we also turn on that bell notification icon, so that way once I push something out, you guys can come back, we can have more discussions about football and the Lions in general. And to also help an endeavor that, I also encourage y'all please to do this. Make sure you share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. Again, the more people we get in, the more the channel grows, the more conversations and the better conversations we can have. And with that being said, I just want to again say thank you all to everybody that watched the content. Thank you all for your view, your support, and patronage. If I had gained your subscription and I hadn't already, I just want to again say thank you all for joining the family. It absolutely means the world to me. I'm ever so thankful for all my subscribers. And if I haven't yet gotten your subscription, hopefully I'll gain it on the next time if you come back. And with that being said, again, just want to say God bless to everybody. Hope you all have a great day. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.